Excellencies, friends, the answer to the question, can genocides and mass atrocities be prevented, should start at the end, in other words, with a conclusion. The conclusion is yes, with great difficulty. Now that's a very banal statement, of course. Why is it so difficult? Well, we are basically, as humans, we are predators. Most of us live, with some exceptions of vegetarians, by eating meat, flesh of other animals and fish. Now, there are no longer many mammoths pacing the roads or streets of Brussels. Instead of that, we are still hunters, of course, and we go to the next supermarket and pick it off the shelves, the meat and the fish. We are still hunters, we are still killers, we are still predators. We are also collectors. We eat bread. You know, that grows grass, green grass, turns yellow, has little things on it. Grind it, flour, bread. We are grass eaters, just like cattle. We eat the fruit of the ground, of the bush, of the tree. And all that we cannot do alone, because we are very weak predators. And so we are herd animals. We cannot do it alone, so we have family, clan, tribe, neighborhood, village, town, city, nation, state, empire. We need a herd around us, otherwise we can't function. Now, we are territorial predators. We need a real territory or an imagined territory in our heads. It's the same thing. And when there are two groups of humans that meet or clash, then there are 5 options. One is to unite, to absorb, because that might strengthen us. The second is to enslave, to subject, to oppress, because there are always things that we don't like to do ourselves. So we need others to do it for us. The third option is to tell the other group to go to hell, which they sometimes do and sometimes don't. The fourth option is to kill them. And this is what has been happening since the beginning of the human race some 200,000 years ago in East Africa and before that. And there's proof of that. Now, there's a fifth option. The fifth option is that two groups of humans on real or imagined territory accommodate each other, arrange what Jürgen called before the resources in some way. Sometimes after hundreds of years of bloody conflict. Take the English and the French, who fought each other for centuries. It is unimaginable that there should be mass atrocities between them. The French and the Germans. The Germans and the Poles. You have the same situation between Thais and Khmer, Cambodians. You have the same situation in other continents. There is a possibility of accommodation. Why? Because as herd animals, we must collaborate, we must cooperate with each other, within a society, within a clan, within a tribe. Therefore we have laws not against killing, but against murder. Murder is forbidden killing. Killing is permitted murder. Within a society, illegal killing is murder, forbidden. Outside of society, within the society, if you kill somebody, you get a medal for it. So we have these internal possibilities of sympathy, of love, of collaboration, even of rescue of others. And it's already been mentioned that in many genocides, not in all of them, some people of the perpetrating group rescued people who were persecuted and threatened with death, even against the danger of themselves being killed. At Yad Vashem, Holocaust Remembrance Institution in Jerusalem, we today have 22,000 cases like that of people who rescued other people whom they didn't know, in most cases. Why? Because there is an instinct that tells you, if I rescue someone, it's not only I will get a better place in some kind of a heaven after death, which is also very important, but the person I rescued, if the situation changes and I am in danger, that person will help. And indeed, in thousands upon thousands of cases researched for the Holocaust, people who were rescued, then rescued people who were in Eastern Europe under communist regime and in danger and in trouble. And the same applies to Rwanda. I know one case at least, researched. Somebody who was rescued by a Muslim Hutu family in one of the small places in Rwanda. And she then went back years afterwards to help that family in their troubled economic situation. Now, what are we talking about? We are talking about mass atrocities. That's a term, a new term. About 10 years ago, a colleague in that secret conspiratorial academic group of which Andrea Bartoli and I are members, the Genocide Prevention Advisory Network, David Sheffer, Northeastern University, Chicago, coined the term mass atrocities to include war crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and the peak, genocide. And the definition of genocide in the convention, which has been argued about endlessly, is a legal document which is very important. But we have to go beyond that. What do we mean by genocide? We mean the intent and action to try and annihilate a human group as such, in whole or in part, whatever that group is, ethnic, national, religious, racial, economic, social, ideological. Any group that is threatened with mass murder, that's a genocidal situation. Now, if we want to fight that, can we do it? Yes, because we have those two elements within us, the killing element, the killing instinct, which is there in all of us. All of us, without any exception, have a tiny little bit of a Himmler and a Hitler inside us, in a different situation, with different socialization, different education, different family, and so on and so forth. We could be them. They could be us. The problem is not that killing is inhuman. The problem is that killing is human. That's our problem. And contrary to that instinct, we have the other one. The one that we call positive, the collaboration, sympathy, and so on. Now, in order to deal with that, we indeed have to deal with interests of groups. Real ones or perceived ones, it doesn't really matter. We have to accommodate them. We have to see how we can manage with these interests in place, because they are there. And there we have three stages. One is prevention. Well, do we know enough about that? Well, in a way, yes, we do. Academic research in different groups by different organizations has made it perfectly clear where there are the risks. Within our group, it's just one of them. We had risk assessments some 5 years ago which indicated that the major problem, immediate problem, or Syria, that's about 1 year before it happened. There's no prediction. There's no such possibility as early warning. Forget about that. Early warning would mean that we can predict when something happens where. But every event in history is the meeting point of an infinite number of causal chains. And because they are infinite, they cannot be known. And so there's no way to predict things. But there is a way to say, yes, there are risks in certain areas. And unless something happens, these risks could become reality. So we are informed. We can prevent. And prevention is much cheaper than clearing up the mess afterwards. So there are 3 stages. Before it happens, while it happens, after it has happened. They have to be addressed politically in different ways, with different tools. Now, where can it be done and by who? First of all, we've got to say very clearly that we are not in a game to prevent human conflicts. That's something we cannot do. The idea that we can prevent genocide altogether or prevent conflicts altogether is a utopia. But we can diminish it, we can possibly, maybe abolish the worst possibility. Now, conflict is a quarrel between 2 or more sides, none of whom has the possibility to annihilate the other. So you have conflicts, political conflicts, where there is a lot of loss of human lives over a long period of time, where no solution seems to be in sight, but where the possibility of mass atrocities in the way that David Sheffer put it, and that I think we all put it today, is not very likely. Very unlikely. Kashmir is one case like that. Lots of people lost their lives there. There's a terrible quarrel, there's a terrible argument, a terrible fight. But the possibility of mass atrocities, of mass killings, of huge numbers of humans is not very likely. There are other situations like that, the Middle East conflict, there are others. So we are not into solving conflicts. We are trying to rescue people from mass atrocities. That is what we are about. So let's differentiate between these. Within what framework? Well, we are using terms, which are inaccurate, and that's very interesting, because they hide from us realities. We talk about United Nations. Nations, yes. United? Come on, let's not be funny. International community? International, yes. Community, no. We are talking about political will. Obama will get up in the morning and after having breakfast, because he has will, he will stop the thing in Syria. No Congress, no American interests, no Russian interests, no Saudi interests, just political will. It's one element, yes. It may not be the decisive element. It's essential. Without that, nothing will happen. But that alone, solution is political will. We have to be realistic. Security Council. It's a council, all right. Security? The Security Council is a solution, no doubt, for mass atrocities. It's also the main problem. We have to create a situation where enough political action is done within the United Nations, or if you like, the disunited nations, that will influence the Security Council members and others to do what is necessary to prevent, to act, to repair. Now, there has been progress. The United Nations is much, 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 much better than the League of Nations before it. And there was nothing before the League of Nations. In the 17th century, a great Dutch academic, Hugo de Grotius, began the first steps towards something that is now developing, which this conference is one of the results today of. But look where he was, look where we are today. There has been progress, no doubt. International law. International law is wonderful. It has to be developed and must be developed. Is it observed? Come on, really. Big states, small states, whenever they have the opportunity and the possibility to violate international law in their own perceived or real interest, they do it. Does that mean we have to have less international law? No, exactly the opposite. We've got to have more of it. We have to press for acceptance. The ICC, International Criminal Court, is a promise for the future. The major powers are not in it. And the prospect of Mr. Bashir taking a bus to The Hague to appear there before the International Criminal Court is not very high. Does that mean we should have more power for the International Criminal Court? No! It's got to have more power, but we've got to realize where we are, not hide ourselves behind concepts that are inaccurate because we don't like the reality. What are the possibilities? Very, very briefly. Interestingly, you see, in the last few years, there's been a whole series of conferences, meetings, attempts. It shows that there are a number of countries, many countries, most of them I would say, probably, almost all of them, are either democratic or half democratic or quarter democratic. With the others it's very difficult to argue. And within that framework, there have been these attempts. 2004, the meeting of in Stockholm of the Forum for the Genocide Prevention. Before that, 4 years before that, the Holocaust Convention, the first Stockholm Forum, where most of the countries represented here participated. Because the Holocaust is the beginning, you see, not of a genocide, not at all, but of the present argument about it. Why? Well, very simple, really. It's not the number of victims. There were many more Chinese and Jews who were killed in mass atrocities. It's not a percentage. The percentage of Armenians who died in World War I of the Armenian population is much higher than that of the Jews in the Holocaust. And not a sadism. Look at what the Romans did 146 BC in Carthage, in Carthago. And you'll find everything there already. It's not sadism, it's not the numbers, it's not a proportion. It's the fact that for the first time in human history, a major power, major industrial, major cultural power, decided to annihilate every single person of a targeted group everywhere in the world. Not all at once, developed in stages. But that's what they arrived at. And it came from the basis, from the core of human civilization of the 20th century. It's not unique, but it's unprecedented. That's where it starts from. 2000, Holocaust Situation Conference. 2004. In 2000, the Stockholm Declaration was produced, which is the founding document today of the International Holocaust Remembrance Association, Alliance. It was a conclusion of a conference, nothing more. It became an international document. In 2004 in Stockholm, we wrote a declaration, you know, as a precedent, 2000. This will become the great document. Anyone remembers it? It adorns the insides of waste paper baskets in all kinds of places in the world. So you never know. And then a few weeks ago, there was a Gamma conference in Costa Rica. 56 governments were represented. The idea is, exactly as it was mentioned here before, of centers, focal points, if you like, in countries that become responsible for themselves, as Andrea said before. And they slowly, it can't happen overnight, develop a consensus, an alliance, a understanding with each other. And that alliance, that understanding, leads to the creation at the United Nations, because that's the forum we have. We don't have a better United Nations than we have. And impress the World Security Council and the other member states to prevent, to intervene, not militarily. I fully agree with Jürgen about that. I may not agree with some other points, but I completely agree with that. Military intervention usually creates more problems than it solves. Economic sanctions only very rarely are justified and work. Open trade may be a much better possibility. But what we need to do is to create a consensual atmosphere, awareness, fortified by education. René Descartes, a great French philosopher in the 17th century, said that I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. I think we should say, we struggle, therefore we are. We struggle not for a good world, there will never be a good world, but for a slightly better world. And it's worth spending one's life to achieve that. Thank you.